At Thanksgiving, my sister grabbed my phone, pretending to take a family selfie. Instead, she snooped through my phone and discovered my $10 million balance. Within seconds, my entire family demanded I split it with her, claiming she deserved half. They had no idea what I was about to do next. Hi, I'm Diana, 38 years old, and I need to tell you the story of how my family has hurt me in several ways, and even tried to take what I worked hard for. But before we begin, can you tell me where you're listening from? I just want to see if I'm not alone. Funny thing is, it wasn't always this way. There was a period in my childhood when I was loved. Really loved. I remember my mother braiding my hair before school, her fingers gentle as she wove the strands together, humming softly. I remember my father taking me to the park on Saturday mornings, pushing me on the swings until I begged him to stop because I was laughing too hard. "You're my special girl," he'd always say to me. I remember feeling safe. Then Becky, my sister, was born. For the first year, everything stayed mostly the same. She was just a baby, and I was the helpful big sister. I loved her so much. The way her tiny fingers would wrap around mine, how she'd stop crying when I sang to her. I'd rush home from school just to hold her. But when Becky turned 1, something happened. She developed health complications. Something she would live with for the rest of her life. Nothing life-threatening, the doctors assured us, but it required constant attention. Frequent doctor visits, medication schedules, monitoring. That's when everything changed. Suddenly, my parents began treating me like I was somehow the reason Becky was sick. No one accused me directly. Nothing that obvious, but the air in the house changed. If Becky whimpered, Mom's stiff silence wrapped around me. If Becky's fever rose, Dad's eyes flicked toward me with something that felt like quiet blame. I couldn't make sense of it. Then one day it became clear to me. I remember the exact moment I realized it. It was my 9th birthday. I came downstairs that morning expecting the usual celebration, even a small one. Instead, I found Mom rushing around, packing a picnic basket. "Mom," I said quietly, "it's my birthday." She glanced at me, distracted.
Oh,
"Happy birthday, sweetie. We'll do something next week, okay? We're taking Becky to the park. The fresh air will be good for her." I watched from the living room window as they loaded Becky into the car, Dad carefully buckling her and while Mom fussed with her sun hat. They were smiling, laughing, even. The three of them drove away, and I stood there in the empty house, 9 years old, on my birthday, completely alone. Next week never came. When I turned 20, I got accepted into university to study chemistry. I was thrilled. Finally, a way forward. A future I could build for myself. I showed my parents the acceptance letter at dinner, my hands shaking with excitement. "That's nice," Dad said, barely glancing up from cutting Becky's chicken into smaller pieces. "Did you hear me? I got into university. Full acceptance." "Becky, open your mouth, honey." That was it. No celebration. No pride. Just indifference. I worked 3 jobs to pay for my first year's tuition. Mornings, I opened at a coffee shop downtown, arriving at 5 a.m. to prep the machines, breathing in the bitter smell of espresso that would cling to my clothes all day. Afternoons, I shelved books at the university library, my legs aching from standing. Nights, I waited tables at a diner where the grease from the kitchen coated everything, including my hair. By the second year, I couldn't keep up. I slept 4 hours a night if I was lucky. I'd stumble into my 8 a.m. chemistry lab running on caffeine and determination, my hands shaking as I did practicals. Once, I nearly dozed off during a lecture and woke to my professor gently touching my shoulder. "Miss Carter, perhaps you should get some rest?" I nodded, embarrassed, knowing I had a shift in 2 hours. My parents never sent a penny. Not for tuition. Not for books. Not for food. In my final year, I hit a wall. I couldn't keep up with the fees anymore. The university sent me a withdrawal notice. I had 2 weeks to pay $3,000 or I'd be kicked out. I remember sitting in my shared apartment, a converted garage I split with 2 other students, staring at that letter until the words blurred. 6 months. I was 6 months from graduating. 6 months from a degree I'd sacrificed everything for. I called my mother, my voice breaking. Mom, please. I just need help with this semester. I'll pay you back. I promise. I'll get a better job after graduation and… Diana, she interrupted, her tone flat. We don't have money for this. Becky is more important. The line went dead. I sat there holding the phone long after the dial tone started, something cold and hard forming in my chest. Not anger. Something colder. Determination forged from rejection. I dropped out that year. All that work, all those sleepless nights gone. That night, I didn't cry. I was too tired to cry. Instead, I made myself a promise. If they wouldn't help me, I'd help myself. And I'd never need them again. A month later, I found a job as an assistant at a makeup studio in West Loop. The owner, Lisa, needed someone to clean brushes, organize inventory, and answer phones. It wasn't glamorous. The pay barely covered rent. But I watched. I learned. I absorbed everything. Lisa noticed me lingering after my shift, practicing techniques on my own face in the mirror. One evening, she approached me as I was attempting a complicated eye blend I'd seen her do earlier. You're using the wrong brush, she said, not unkindly. She handed me a different one. Try this. Smaller motions. Build the color gradually. I did. It worked. You've got an eye for this, she said thoughtfully. Want me to teach you? I stayed late every night after that. Lisa taught me color theory, skin undertones, how to read a client's bone structure, how to make someone feel beautiful, not just look it. She taught me that makeup wasn't about transformation, it was about revelation. You're helping people see themselves the way they deserve to be seen, she'd say. I threw myself into learning with the same intensity I'd once applied to chemistry. I studied luxury brands until I could identify products by their scent and texture alone. I practiced on anyone willing, roommates, coworkers, strangers at bus stops who looked like they needed a confidence boost. One afternoon, I did the makeup for a woman heading to a job interview. She was nervous, fidgeting with her resume. When I finished and handed her the mirror, she went completely still. Then tears welled up. I forgot I could look like this, she whispered. She got the job. She came back to thank me, bringing flowers she could barely afford. That's when I knew. This was it. This was what I was meant to do. 1 year later, I had a plan that terrified me. And $700 in savings. I moved to New York with everything I owned in 2 suitcases and a dream that kept me awake at night. I rented the cheapest studio space I could find in Manhattan, barely bigger than a closet, wedged between a dry cleaner and a bodega. The walls were water-stained. The lights flickered. The radiator clanked so loudly, I thought it might explode. But it was mine. I painted the walls myself, working through the night in borrowed clothes. I bought secondhand chairs and refinished them. I created a logo on free design software, spending hours getting the font exactly right. I called it Diana's Luxury Touch. The first 3 months, I had exactly 4 clients. All friends and friends of friends I had made in New York. I barely made rent. I ate 1 meal a day, usually rice with whatever vegetables were on sale. I considered giving up at least once a week, staring at my dwindling bank account and wondering if I'd made a terrible mistake. But then something shifted. My breakthrough came through a small fashion blogger with 3,000 followers on Instagram who came in for a makeover for an event and posted the results on her page. A local actress saw it, asked for my contact, and showed up at my tiny studio for a session. She looked in the mirror after I finished and said, "Who did you train with?" "Mostly myself," I admitted. She blinked, then smiled. "You're going to be huge." Words spread like ripples in water. Slowly at first, then faster. Within 2 years, I had a waiting list. Within 5 years, I opened a second location with better lighting, proper equipment, and a team of 3 talented artists who shared my vision. By year 10, Diana's Luxury Touch had 5 locations across New York. We'd launched a product line in major retailers. Celebrities were calling. Magazine editors. Fashion week coordinators. 15 years after dropping out of university, my business was worth over $15 million. And my family knew none of it. I never went home. Not once in those 15 years. My parents never asked why. They never called to check on me, never wondered how I was surviving in New York. As long as I sent money, which I did every few months, they were content not knowing. I'd wire them $1,000 here, $2,000 there. Enough that they didn't question. Not enough that they'd suspect real wealth. They assumed I was scraping by, maybe working retail somewhere, barely making ends meet. They never asked what I did, where I lived, if I was happy. They never asked anything.
It was easier that way.
Easier to be successful in silence than to invite them into a life they'd never valued. I told myself I didn't care. Most days, I believed it. Then, last October, my phone rang with an unknown Los Angeles number. Diana? It's Mom. We're having Thanksgiving at the house this year. You should come. I almost laughed. 15 years of nothing, and now an invitation delivered like we'd just talked last week. I don't think so, Mom. Becky really wants to see you. Please? It's been so long. It would mean a lot to her. Something twisted in my chest. A strange longing I hadn't felt in years. Despite everything, the neglect, the dismissal, the birthday no one remembered, I missed them. Maybe enough time had passed. Maybe things could be different now. Okay, I heard myself say. I'll be there. I flew into Los Angeles the day before Thanksgiving, deliberately dressing simply. Jeans from a department store. A plain sweater. My most expensive jewelry, left in New York. I wanted to see them without the complications of wealth. When my Uber pulled up to the house, everything looked exactly the same. The same chipped paint on the shutters. The same rosebush Dad had planted when I was 6. The same driveway where I used to practice roller skating alone while my parents stayed inside with Becky. My hands were shaking as I knocked. Becky answered the door with a young man beside her. Her face lit up. Diana. Oh my God. You actually came? She hugged me tight, and for a moment, I let myself believe this would be okay. This is Tyler, my boyfriend, she said, beaming. Tyler shook my hand warmly. Really nice to meet you. Becky talks about you all the time. Inside, my parents were setting the table. Mom glanced up briefly, her hands full of silverware. Oh, you made it.
Good.
Can you help bring out the dishes from the kitchen? No hug. No, we missed you. No acknowledgement that I'd flown across the country after 15 years of silence. Just instructions. Some things never change. Thanksgiving dinner was exactly as I remembered and feared. The same roasted turkey Mom always made, slightly dry. The same green bean casserole from a recipe she'd never varied. Even the same tablecloth with the faded stain from when I'd spilled grape juice at age 7. Mom and Dad orbited around Becky like she was the sun. Every story she told was met with laughter and praise. She talked about her entry-level marketing job like she'd just been named CEO. They hung on every word. I sat across from them, fork moving food around my plate, invisible again. Diana lives in New York now, Tyler mentioned, trying to include me. He had asked me a FW questions before dinner started. That's nice, dear, Mom said absently, not looking up. After dinner, as we cleared plates, Becky smiled at me, then suddenly grabbed my phone. As I rose to protest, she gestured to me. Relax, Diana. I only want to take a selfie with everyone. Mine's dead. I stared at her for a few seconds, then sat down. Everyone squeeze in. Becky held up my phone, and we all leaned together, smiling. She pretended to snap 3 happy photos, everyone laughing, completely unaware of what she was really doing. Then I watched her eyes shift. Her thumb was swiping, scrolling through my notifications, my messages. Becky, give me my phone back. I demanded. Her face went pale, then red, then something else entirely, shock mixed with something darker. You have got millions, Diana, she screamed, loud enough that everyone jumped. Silverware clattered against plates.
Mom. Dad.
Diana has $10 million. She thrust my phone at our mother, who grabbed it before I could reach across the table. Give that back.
Now.
My voice was ice. But Mom was already staring at the screen, and my bank balance, at business emails about product launches and location expansions, at the life I'd built in secret. The room went dead silent except for the ticking of that old kitchen clock. Then everyone started talking at once. 10 million. Dad's voice was sharp, accusing. Where did you get $10 million? Split it with Becky, Mom said immediately, not looking up from my phone. Her fingers were white-knuckled around it. You need to split it with her. Not congratulations. Not we're so proud. Not how did you build this? Just demands. Split it. I repeated slowly, my voice dangerously calm. Split money I earned? Becky deserves it more, Mom said, as if this were the most obvious thing in the world. She's had a harder life. You've always been able to take care of yourself. The words hit like a slap. Always been able to take care of myself. Because I'd had no choice. I can take care of myself because I had to, I said, my voice rising despite my efforts to stay calm. Because you gave me no choice. Becky was crying now aloud, dramatic sobs that I recognized from childhood. The crying that always got her whatever she wanted. I can't believe you've been rich this whole time. Living in luxury while we struggled. You never helped us. Never helped me. I sent you money for 7 years, I said, my voice trembling. Thousands of dollars you took without ever asking where it came from or how I was doing. Without even a thank you. Dad stood up, his chair scraping violently against the floor. You're supposed to help family, Diana. That's what family does. We raised you. We deserve. Deserve? The word came out as a laugh. You want to talk about what people deserve? I stood too, my whole body shaking. But not with fear. With 15 years of silence finally breaking free like water through a cracked dam. I own Diana's luxury touch, I said, enunciating each word clearly. 5 locations across New York. A product line in major stores. Featured in Vogue, Harper's Bazaar, and Elle. I built it from nothing because when I begged you for help, when I was about to be kicked out of university 6 months before graduating, you told me Becky was more important. Mom's face went white. That's not. I worked 3 jobs. I continued, my voice gaining strength. I slept 4 hours a night. I lived on instant noodles and condiment packets from the diner where I waited tables. I dropped out because you wouldn't help me with 1 semester of tuition. 1 semester. $3,000 that would have changed my life. We didn't have, Dad started. You had enough for Becky's study abroad program, her private tutors. For spring break trips to Miami, I couldn't join because I had to work to pay my own tuition. The silence was suffocating. You never called, I said, quieter now. Never visited. Never asked what I did, or where I lived, or if I was okay. You took my money and never once wondered how I had any to send. Never once said thank you. Family helps each other, Mom said weakly, but the conviction was gone from her voice. No, I said. I helped you. For 7 years, I helped you. And you never even acknowledged it. Becky stood up, her face twisted with anger. You're so selfish. You're supposed to. Enough. Everyone turned. Tyler, who'd been silent throughout dinner, was standing now too. His expression was hard, disgusted. You people are incredible, he said, looking at Becky, then at her parents. Your daughter built a multi-million-dollar business from nothing, and instead of being proud, you're demanding she hand it over? Tyler, stay out of this, Becky hissed. She dropped out of school because you wouldn't help her, he continued, ignoring her. She left for 15 years, and you never even noticed. You never asked if she was alive or struggling or needed anything. And now you want her money? Do you hear yourselves? This is family business, Dad said coldly. You wouldn't understand. Then treat her like family, Tyler shot back. Because from where I'm standing, you've treated her like an ATM with no feelings. I looked at each of them. Mom, still gripping my phone like it was evidence in a trial. Dad, red-faced and rigid with indignation. Becky, tears streaming down her face. Not from sadness, I realized, but from rage that she wasn't getting what she wanted. I walked over to my mother and took my phone from her hand. She tried to hold on for a second, then let go. I came here because I missed you, I said quietly, looking at each of them in turn. I wanted to believe things could be different after all this time. But you're right about one thing. Some things never change. I grabbed my coat from the hook by the door. You'll hear from me when I decide, I said, my hand on the doorknob. Not before. Behind me, I heard Mom start to say something, but I didn't stop. I walked out into the cool November night, and for the first time in 15 years, I felt like I could breathe. The Uber arrived 6 minutes later. I gave the driver the address of the Ritz-Carlton. My room was on the 23rd floor, all glass and clean lines and a view that stretched across the entire city. I stood on the balcony in the cool night air, wrapping my arms around myself, watching Los Angeles pulse below me. Headlights streamed along the freeways like rivers of light. Buildings glittered against the dark sky. Somewhere down there, people were living their lives, chasing dreams, starting over, building something from nothing. I'd been one of those lights once. Barely visible, easy to miss. Now I was standing here, looking down at it all, no longer invisible. Then my phone rang. Dad's name on the screen. I stared at it for 3 rings, considering not answering. Then I picked up. Diana. His voice was different. Smaller. Uncertain. I'm sorry, he said. I waited, watching a plane descend toward LAX in the distance. Your mother and we were wrong. About everything. The way we treated you growing up. What we said tonight. All of it. You deserved better. Yes, I said simply. I did. Is there any way we can fix this? I thought about 9-year-old me, singing Happy Birthday alone in an empty kitchen. About calling home from university, desperate and exhausted, only to be told I didn't matter. About 15 years of building a life they never asked about. Maybe, I said finally honestly. Someday. But not now. Not on your terms. You'll hear from me when I'm ready. Not before. Diana, please. Goodbye, Dad. I hung up. The city stretched out below me, indifferent and beautiful. Somewhere down there, someone was probably working 3 jobs, wondering if they'd make it. Someone was probably being told they didn't matter by people who should love them. I hoped they'd find their way out, too. I'd done it once. Built something from nothing, from rejection, from invisibility. And standing here, looking out at all those lights, I realized something. I didn't need their approval anymore. I didn't need their acknowledgement or their pride or their love. I had built something beautiful entirely on my own. And that was enough. For the first time in my life, I was completely free. To anyone out there feeling invisible in their own family, you're not alone. Your worth isn't determined by people who refuse to see you. Sometimes the best thing you can do is walk away and build something beautiful on your own terms. Thank you for listening. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do and hit the notification bell to stay updated with more real-life stories. Your support keeps us going.